What if a home were to be inspired by what nature has given us? Wouldn't it not be more suitable, sustainable, responsible?
Architecture must always be sensitive and considerate. Sensitive to the way of life, sensitive to our needs, sensitive to the environment, sensitive also to the neighbors around. What are architectural traditions? Traditions are something that is handed down from one generation to the other. But the truth is, it is not written in stone. Traditions change over a period of time. They adapt to new circumstances. The oral tradition of handing down information, improvising and building on it is really what the definition of tradition is. Creating new traditions in building construction. Old traditions have always existed, but old traditions modified themselves as time went on. People learned, improved their ways, and used new materials to build with, or old materials in new ways. This is what the construction here was about. Old materials, old knowledge, but new ways of doing things. What can be achieved by doing that? Stumbling upon maybe a better way of constructing, a more efficient way, a way that can be replicated to many more buildings than be limited to one-off situation or one-off construction methodology. This is what we wanted to achieve in the construction of Zarine. Hi, I'm Zarine Jamshedji of Zarine Jamshedji Architects.
Through, right?
No, there is a presentation, but we can start. I'll run very quickly. The context, 2 kilometers from Cochin's Info Park, surrounded by paddy, nutmeg, rubber plantations. Built to merge into the surroundings. I felt very shameful to the fact that we were building in a beautiful place. I was ashamed virtually. Whatever we do, whatever we say is sustainable is only partly sustainable. In some way or the other, it results in the degradation of the environment. We try our best to limit it. Roof planted with vetiver, the whole house was designed to merge into the surroundings. The philosophy was to be contextual. The philosophy was not to just be green. The context was very important. You enter the home. A visitor from outside can see through, right from in to out to what lies beyond. You enter through a meandering walkway, below 9 solar panels, into a sand-washed veranda that is inscribed with De Aarde on Thuis, which says in Dutch, the earth, our home. You're inside a living, dining, and communal kitchen space. You further step out into a sit-out, which is framed by a cantilever, so there are no columns in between. The planning. 2 accesses have been created, One is more visual, where you stand at the entrance and can see right through. Transparency was very important, because a site like this you do not want to block off with high walls. The identity of the entire surroundings is based on a site like this. Moment you block the site with high walls, you limit the ownership of what lies beyond for the others. 2 bedrooms on the western side. We work a lot with our own created Vastu, where sun, wind, and shading is based on the site of what I perceive a particular project may require. So here the bedrooms actually are more in the northern side, and we can see an amazing effect. The wind does come a lot even from the north because it's an open space, and it stays the coolest at night. The bedrooms have an open wash area. You can walk out into a small courtyard. Minimal doors, so you can move freely between spaces. The most fun part of the project was developing, and accidentally developing, I would say, the mud plaster. I was looking for something that was interesting, but at the same time, we had gone to a laterite cutting yard to source laterite blocks. We wanted to create a retaining wall without cement by staggering the blocks. To source good blocks, North Kerala is famous for very good laterite, which has very low clay content. We went to this laterite cutting factory. They were cutting the laterite with the water. The water and the particles of laterite fell to the ground. Just out of curiosity, I touched down and felt. It had a lovely consistency. It wasn't clay. It had fine particles. The particles came together when you held and bind them. And we used the same by creating a mix for the render of the entire home. May I continue? Okay. The interiors have a very minimal material palette, laterite paste, beige for all the floors, linen. The rough foundation is polished directly to be the floor. Furniture, the old waste panels have been reclaimed into furniture. There is an artwork in the living room, which is painted with the waste mud paste. Lightings, etc., have been integrated into the slab to avoid false ceilings, tested for heat dissipation. What you see is some of the reclaimed furniture or the recycled furniture. Some find living with nature fearful. We call it home.
It's an extremely mature project. So it's very difficult to talk about it. Or either one talks a lot about it because there are so many explorations that you have touched upon, or one keeps it to just, it's brilliant what you have done there. But let me still, since we need to speak here, few thoughts. I mean, that the dogs and the cats coexist, and ferocious dogs like a Alsatian, I normally would get scared, but you made it very comfortable as we visited the place, is a testimony and almost metaphorical for the coexistence of the surrounding, the nature, the architecture, and the interiors. I mean, the dogs symbolize that for me, the dogs and cats, of course. And you can feel that within this simple construction system that you have adopted, the almost consciously made the attempt to keep the interiors also very subdued, very basic, in favor of enjoying its habitation, the surrounding. Certainly one can see immediately this vanishing landscaping. It's almost like I have taken a piece of cut with the equipment, a piece of land from the agriculture and lifted it up and put it in the landscaping. All your pictures actually show that. So for me, the clarity is highly commendable here of inside, outside, and working with nature as the backdrop, as the canvas. So I can't say more than that. It's a wonderful work.
Can you critique it in any way?
Yes, I think it's
To
a weekend
generate
house.
more thought.
It's not necessarily home. I see it more like a weekend house. I had that feeling.
Why do you not see it as a home?
I think because the way everything is so prim and proper. I don't know, I'm a little chaotic when I live. I have my books flying around and my CDs are here and my furniture is never so organized. Maybe you prepared it for our visit. I don't know. Could be. But I felt it is very, for daily living, it's just too curated. That's what I felt. Because you asked me, you asked for trouble. I didn't want to do that.
I wanted it. Because a reaction only gives you further thought.
There has to be more clutter. Living is, I see that also with most of the AD publications, the pictures. These houses don't look lived in, they look like
Six
Photoshop.
dogs live there, so you can imagine it's really lived in.
Yeah, I will see that again.
Thank you.
Yeah, firstly, again, congratulations on a project well done. I think for me, again, it comes back to this thing in some senses, actually the projects that once the jury selects is also saying something. So these projects in the interior scheme were also a little bit of a resistance to what interiors has sort of come out to be, which is very object-oriented. And there is less said about the experiential quality of space and the interiority of space. And I will diverge from Viren, then I just said that the jury was in consensus, but all three of us, Palinda included. But what appealed to me about the house is that it did feel lived in, and lived in by not just humans, but your pets and all the sort of like plant life around it. Of course, I mean, we are visiting places, so there is a degree of as one would welcome guests, I'm sure things are cleaned up for whatever it's worth. But I could imagine that house taking in life in whatever form that house is designed for, because not all lives are similar. And I think with the interiors, I'll get to the critique. But in the interiors, what also worked for me is that there's a thought and engineering that has gone into creating the spaces, but there's a tactility to it. It is not like eventually in the experiential quality of it, it's very grounded and it's very grounded, the earthiness of it, and it's a conscious choice. At the same time, there's a discipline in not making it like throw everything against the wall and hope it sticks. There's a curation to it, and simple gestures, but it becomes quite powerful, is that artwork that you've done, which I guess you've done with your own hands. And that sort of pays homage to the materiality of the architecture, of the space itself. So for me, at least, there is now a draw to interior spaces, because we spend so much time there, which offer a sort of holistic, the inside, the outside, the materials all come together in how you experience it. And I would thank the organizers for it, because some of this gets captured only when you visit the space. I think for me, the critique actually is more in terms of the architecture of the space, and that's sort of in the tectonics of it. There are lots of wonderful elements. The paddy field going on to the sort of horizon is wonderful. The colors and how it comes together. There is a certain, these are actually the intangibles of it in terms of how architecture is translated. Because you can take the same elements and have an elevated experience or not. And in a lot of cases, one has managed in the project. But the sort of like that thing that one sees actually now across board in the visual imagery of architecture, where you have a vista and these houses are mostly set in spectacular landscapes. You have a vista that goes through and through your kitchen and public spaces in the center and like services and things. It's almost become a paradigm, like the form of it. And then we did feel, and there was a struggle there in terms of what it does with that paradigm. Like, while the elements are sort of coming in, the overall quality of it still feels very, in the layouting and the space of it. It fits inside, but still like a little formulaic, if you know what I mean. Okay. So that was that. Less to do with the interior spaces, more to do with how all of it comes together. Nice, but there's still a little bit of a question mark. And I think at the end, what I feel like this site is wonderful, because I feel like in a few years, when the plant life really takes on, it'll be an even more wonderful experience. And that I want to actually a little bit highlight, not so much for your project itself, but across board. Project cycles now are 1 year. Submit the project in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year max. And it's nice, and it needs to be acknowledged for projects which are designed for maturity beyond that life cycle. And this project I can see like getting more and more grounded to the land in which it belongs. And that's really a wonderful quality about it. So yeah, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. It was very detailed.
Thank you.